You're joining the Loudr Lawyer Network, the podcast where we sit down with the law firm owners, attorneys, and visionaries that are making the most noise in the legal landscape nationwide to find out the secrets to their success. Other podcasts think they're getting loud, but we're getting louder. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Loudr Lawyer Network, where we help attorneys scale to million-dollar months through powerful strategies and connections. And the connection I have on today is Mark Shirian. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Raje, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Hey, man, I'm excited to have you. You have first of all, let me just go into your accolades. You've been featured in a number of outlets: NBC, ABC, Fox News, New York Times, New York Post. You're a national trial lawyer, top 40 under 40. I mean, the list goes on and on. And if you could take me back to the moment before, because I have your impressive resume, but take me back before you were a law clerk in Nassau. Is that Nassau County?
Nassau County.
Nassau County. I was messing it up, man.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Seuss and everything, but take me back before that in those moments.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I grew up in a suburb outside of Long Island, Great Neck, New York, and which is in Nassau County. And it was while I was in high school, I saw the movie with Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks, the movie Philadelphia. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
Great movie.
Movie really inspired me to pursue law, to become a lawyer. It just really struck a nerve with me, and I just had to pursue being a lawyer and going to law school and advocating for people who weren't able to advocate for themselves. So I came from a family, there were no lawyers in my family. My father was a civil engineer, very accomplished civil engineer, but no one in my family was an attorney. But unfortunately, when I was younger, my father had a terminal illness that he was battling, and he passed away when I was in high school, going into my senior year. And I think because of that, it really shaped me, because I saw how that impacted our family financially, how that emotionally affected all of us, my mom, and raising 3 kids and also having a career of her own. And I think it just gave me a sense of understanding people's pain and having mercy for what people go through. And I understood at a young age that people need an advocate when they're unable to fight for themselves. So I think, before I became a lawyer, I just had an unlimited amount of fire to prove that I could do this and advocate for people. And I was just coming from, it's a wealthy community, and I grew up, I didn't grow up with any sort of disadvantage. I always had what I needed to be successful. So I'm not going to take that route. But I think I came with a tremendous amount of fire and understanding at the same time of what people need who are going through a horrible time. And that's really where I was coming from before I became a law clerk.
Yeah, that's amazing. I saw you jumped around in the fields. When exactly did you also have a background? You're a collegiate wrestler,
right?
About the wrestling, man. I used to wrestle, man.
Where'd you wrestle at?
I wrestled over at Patrick Henry Crawford High School.
Okay.
Down in San Diego, man. We were. I was so strong. I would go up weight classes because I just had that core strength. I would beat guys bigger than me.
Yeah, so I wrestled at NYU, but before that I was wrestling in high school, and then I wrestled for 4 years at NYU, and then after college, while I was in law school, I became a wrestling coach at a private school on Long Island, and I did that for 6 years. And I'll tell you, you talk about being a lawyer and litigation. Wrestling is a lot like litigation, because think about it. The case, I think, is won or lost before you even walk into court. It comes down to preparation. The referee is a lot like the judge. You got to
Yes.
be on your feet. You can't, just because there's a, minor loss, or you're in a situation that's not so advantageous. That doesn't mean you're going to lose the whole case. So keeping a calm mind and executing. I learned a lot about, wrestling. My whole career in wrestling taught me a lot, not just practicing law, but being a business owner and having the strength to overcome a lot of the adversity that comes your way as a trial lawyer and as a business owner. So I credit my wrestling career a lot, and I go back to it a lot. And I'm a big proponent of sports in general, especially for young children. It's a great character builder, but wrestling, I think, is at the top of the list when it comes to sports, because you're out there on your own. And at the end of the day, as you get older, as an adult, you realize, I have a wonderful family. I have wonderful friends and relationships and all that, but you're out there by yourself at the end of the day. And it's what you do in the dark that comes to light. And you have to have high character. And I learned a lot of that through wrestling. So
Man,
yeah.
not to interrupt you. That is such a beautiful analogy, because being a wrestler, I think about you, your opposition, and the referee. And you have the whole world, the audience watching, and you have that circle. Yeah, that line. It was about getting that takedown, and when your back is on the mat, literally, that holding that shoulder up, be not to get that pin. That's the adversity that you have. Being able to get out of that and turn things around, man, is a lot like life, and that's a beautiful analogy put together.
And I'll go even further as a litigator. Okay, a lot of times, I remember when I was wrestling or even coaching at tournaments, my wrestlers would come up to me like, "Coach, who am I wrestling next? Who am I wrestling from that school?" Da, da, da.
Yes.
I think with what we do here, and what I pride myself tremendously at my firm, is I don't care who I'm going up against. I don't care if it's a big corporation, it's a scary individual, the law firm is a big. I don't. I look at who our client is, what are the facts, what's the law, and is this something that we're able to pursue? I don't care who's on the other side. I don't care who I'm litigating against. You have to be focused and you have to have courage when you're bringing a case. And who is on the other side of the V can't dictate whether you're going to get on the mat or not, or whether you're going to file that lawsuit or not. You have to have conviction and you have to go forward with it if you actually believe in the case. Those factors shouldn't impact whether you get in the ring or not. So that's another thing that I think comes up a lot when it comes to evaluating cases and evaluating clients and whether we're going to pursue those cases or not. But that sort of thing, who we're going up against, should never become a factor at all. So,
Man, one of your things that describes you, one of the words, you're creative. I think there was assertive. But what stands out beyond anything to me is your honesty, your honesty, and your way in which you look at things. Like you taken on Fortune 500 companies, the school system. You've taken on government in all ways, and then you even protected a child from the Child Victim Act, where you got a huge recovery for that. Take me back to those moments when you're facing these kind of entities, man, and being the individual you are with your
well, I
firm.
really appreciate those kind words. As a lawyer, this work is stressful enough, and if if you are not honest with yourself, with your clients, with other attorneys, with the court, you're going to have a lot more problems than you already have to deal with.
Right.
So that I like to sleep at night. So it's very important. I tell my clients, we have nothing to hide here. We have nothing to hide. And that's why I vet the cases very meticulously from the beginning, because they have to feel good about working with me. They have to understand my personality and where I'm coming from. And I need to understand my clients as well and where they're coming from. And I'm not for everyone, and not every client is for me. I know that. And I think once you accept that as an attorney, you'll feel a lot more comfortable rejecting cases and then taking on cases that other attorneys may not want to take on. So to answer your question, I pride myself so far. So this August will be 10 years I've had my law firm. It's been a decade almost. 2016, which Raje, it sounds like a lifetime ago, 2016, and how the world was back then.
No,
and how
absolutely.
But I've really, the big wins that I've had, I really pride myself on cases that I've taken on that many other lawyers passed on. They just didn't see the value in that case. I've prided myself on just evaluating cases differently, seeing it from a different lens, asking the right questions, and the right way presenting the case in a different angle with a different legal theory that works and maximizes the value of the case and really demonstrates what happened. So I'll give you an example. There was a case that came on my desk that 7 top injury lawyers in New York didn't want. A security guard at a library, unfortunately, was stabbed to death by a patron, and nobody wanted the case because it was a workers' comp case. She got killed on the job, and the patron who did it, was a homeless individual, and there was no way you could sue her employer for damages because there's you just file a workers' comp claim. You can't sue for negligence. Can't sue your own employer for negligence. But long story short, I got the case, and I did some research, and one of her coworkers went on the news and said that this patron had a history of asking her out on dates and asking her to be his girlfriend. So we brought a sexual harassment claim against the library. And we were able to uncover that this particular patron had been banned from the library for, I won't get into it so much, but let's just say they knew about his sexual propensity. So let's just leave it at that. And we were able to get a wonderful settlement for this woman's 3 kids who survived her. But this was a case where if they didn't find me, they would have probably never gotten any justice at all after 7 lawyers rejected their case. So cases like that, where it was a shot in the dark, and I'm so glad that I brought this case, that they found me. And that's another thing that the lawyers don't really talk about. It's a very spiritual concept. Why are these clients coming to you? How did they find you? And how did it come about that you're advocating for them and that you're getting them that result? After all that, they found you. And I told them, I'm like, I really I felt your mother's presence with me. And I really feel like I'm the only one that would have figured this out, because clearly I was, after 7 lawyers rejecting your case and never being able to get real answers what happened to their mom. So I've really, in these last 10 years, I've prided myself on doing the impossible. And I've really, my middle name is David, and that's why it's in my firm name. Because before I started this firm, I read the book David and Goliath by Malcolm.
And you gave me chills right now, because you're going to take me when you talked about spirituality and you talked about the numbers, the how you grew up and losing your dad, God brings, he's the reason for everything. I believe the Holy Spirit leads people like you just, the underdog. Look at top attorneys turned this case down, and it wasn't an accident. It was a purpose. And I think you're serving that purpose. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to say that.
No, I appreciate that. And that's what I've really prided myself in these last 10 years is kind of just embracing this David and Goliath type of attitude that we may not be the biggest firm and we may not have all the resources that these insurance companies and these big companies have, but we know how to fight and we're not afraid to fight and we know how to get results, and we're going to do everything that we can in our power to get the best type of result for our client. And our results have spoken for themselves. They speak for themselves with what we've done. And the other high profile matter that we're still handling is that we've taken on the gun industry. There was a young woman there was a mass shooting in a Brooklyn subway in April of 2022. I can't believe it's already been 4 years ago. Wow. But in that case, the shooter used a Glock gun. And in 2021, there's a new law that was signed by ex-Governor Cuomo that allows you to sue gun manufacturers if you're the victim of gun violence. You're now able to sue gun manufacturers for the marketing and distribution of their product. So if their marketing or distribution was negligent and you were a victim of gun violence, you can now sue gun manufacturers in New York. So there's been a huge fight over the constitutionality of this law. So our lawsuit has stayed. We sued Glock on behalf of this young woman for her injuries. But right now, the constitutionality has been affirmed, and we're right now waiting to see if the Supreme Court is going to take on this matter and whether they're going to give an opinion on whether this law is constitutional or not. So we're waiting to see. But again, I'm so honored to represent this young woman and New Yorkers everywhere. I believe we're the first law firm that's sued under this new law. So we'll see what happens, but we're ready for that fight. And we know that with this lawsuit and what we're pursuing and what we stand for, we're making the world a much safer place, at least in New York and New York City. And that's what those things are very meaningful for me in these last 10 years of having my own firm.
So. That's man, just sitting back, listening to you talk, watching you. And, I interview a lot of different people in the law field, a lot of different lawyers, a lot of personalities and stuff. But one that just sits with the surety, like your heart bleeds what you do. I mean, it bleeds with compassion. And that's really a rarity. Most people are just sitting up, look at the number. You to go back and talk about your middle name. When I was talking earlier with Will, I said Mark David. He was like, no, it's Mark Shirian. I'm like, no, but the David stood out to me, and the fact that you used it and you went right there, man, and spoke on it. That says a lot, especially knowing that. I'm sure you know other Bible verses and things of that nature. Scripture, but to use David, he was a very wise man, and he had a heart after God,
100%. But
that says a lot about you taking like the cases that you're doing, and then not only you're in the PI aspect of stuff, but you're in the employment and discrimination, harassment, sports and entertainment law, which I want to get into you with in just a little bit. And there was one other one that you were commercial litigation, intricate commercial litigation, correct? Right. What led you to all those things? But before you answer that, you said yourself, this August 2000 coming up is going to be 10 years that you've been in. You went on your own in 2016, August 2016, after being with another firm and coaching full time. When you were coaching, were you still practicing law? What made you jump to like, I'm going all in, leaving the other place where you're an associate with? What made you go all in? What was that deciding factor?
Sometimes one of my idols is Pat Riley. And if you ever read his book, The Winner Within, there's a quote within that book, and it's actually a quote at the end of the book. And if you look, I know you're out in California, but if you look at his statue that the Lakers just unveiled, the quote that really hit me is in that statue. So basically the quote goes, at some point in your life, you're going to have to stand tall and do what's right. And before I started my firm, I just felt like I was underpaid. I was underutilized. I wasn't working on cases that I wanted to work on. And I just felt like I could do things a lot better than others. And, going back to, your critique of other lawyers, I've learned through coaching that, if you do something and your intention is good, good things will come your way. So when it comes to being a lawyer, what is our intention here? If our intention is just to make money and risking justice or somehow not getting our clients the justice they deserve, we're not going to feel good about what we're doing. So my whole thing has been how my intention with every case that I touch is how are we promoting justice with this case? And if I get a case and I don't feel like the other side did anything wrong, I'm not going to pursue that. So we're only pursuing cases that are promoting justice. And if that's your intention as a lawyer, the money will come. Okay. So before I went out on my own, I just had a feeling like I needed to do this. I can do it the right way. I can provide a service that a lot of other people aren't. And I just dreamed that I could have my own firm, my own foundation with my own cases and make my own money and make my own impact at doing things the right way. I kind of felt like I was being held down by the other lawyers that I was working for. They were great. I learned a tremendous amount I'm still in touch with a lot of the lawyers that I've been employed by, and I've learned a tremendous amount from all of them. And I'm very grateful for the experiences that I was able to have with all of them, because I've learned different things from all of them. But I felt in my heart I needed to do this. And some points in your life you just need to take a risk. You need to go out on your own. It's scary, and I can get into that more. But I had $15,000 to my name, 0 clients when I started out. Zero clients, and I had $15,000 to my name. And I would starting out, I'd go to court for other lawyers just to get some money coming in. But I hustled, and I've built this firm. We're now a team of 7, and we have about 180 plus active cases, and we're continuing to grow, and it's been a beautiful thing.
Man, that's beautiful. Do you remember what that first case was that impacted your law, and you're like, I made the right decision? What was that case that solidified you? You went $15,000, no clients. What was that one client that made the impact that you knew you made the right decision?
There was early on in my career, there are a few that I could tell you, but I remember, and it wasn't even such a big settlement. It was a fellow that I met right before I went out on my own. He was a construction worker. And he sees me in a suit. We were at I think it was like a newsstand or something. I think I was getting like a soda. And he was like, "Are you a lawyer? You look like a lawyer." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a lawyer." He goes, "Well, I I feel like I was discriminated against.
Mm.
And I was just so naive to, at the time, I wasn't really even handling a lot of discrimination cases, but I was just so naive to his plight, to be honest with you. I couldn't believe it that someone in 2016 was complaining about discrimination.
Mm.
The more I looked into it, the way it was in New York, the unions, apparently the way unions came about was it was really a racial thing to keep out immigrants who were coming into New York and taking on less pay. That was their way of trying to control that. So there are racial disparity undertones to unions for the most part. I guess I take that back. Unions can be very beneficial, but the way it came about, the history of it, from what I've read, I don't necessarily think the intentions were so pure. But with that case, that was one of my first cases that I took on by myself. And I remember we were negotiating a settlement for my client. And we got him the number that he wanted on that case. And I was so proud of that. But I learned something huge in that case, because once I got him the number that he wanted, he said, well, I also want in the settlement agreement that they're going to train their employees so no one that looks like me ever has to deal with what I dealt with at this place.
Wow.
And that was just important to him than the money that I was able to get him. And what I realized was that justice is not one size fits all. Justice means something different to everyone. And I'm very sensitive to that, because a certain amount of money, it's beyond that, because all I can do is get my clients money. But he wanted training, that they would do yearly training to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Wow.
So that was I met him right before I went out on my own. That was one of the first cases I took on by myself from beginning to end, settled that case. It wasn't like, it was a good amount of money. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but the non-financial terms that were so important to him taught me that justice goes beyond money, and that you need to be very cognizant of the type of justice that your client wants. Because at the end of the case, if they don't feel like what they obtained is justice, then I didn't do my job. I need them to feel like this was justice. So again, I could talk about other cases, but
that right there
really hit me hard. And I'm at every client that comes in, I understand that I have to customize justice that way.
And that's where your creativity comes from. The creative factor that you have that sets you apart. I also saw, now, Sean, is that your brother, cousin?
That's my brother. Sometimes people think that's my son. I'm not that old, but that's my brother. So he's my
okay.
My younger
so I saw that I do research. I have to look into the people of the firm. I saw that he also went after the gaming system and there's a connection I have there. I told you we had a few things in common. One was Lee Steinberg. I saw you had Lee Steinberg. We had that mutual connection on LinkedIn.
I have a funny story about Lee.
Go ahead.
That's Mr. Jerry Maguire. That's who you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
First of all, he is such a great guy.
Man, he's a man of heart.
Let me tell you about him. So I dabbled in sports. I wanted to I was an NFL agent for a little bit. It didn't really pan out. I wanted my own independence, but I'm glad that I did it, because I learned a lot about that whole industry. But I'm a lot happier with what I'm doing here. But I cold emailed him. I saw that he was in New York. I think he posted on social media. This was like 11 years ago. So I cold emailed him. I'm like, hey, Lee, I'm taking the NFL exam or whatever, or I just took it, something like that. I don't know. And I'd love to meet with you while you're in New York. And I didn't even expect him to get back to me, but he was like, yeah, let's do breakfast on this date. Let me know, I'm free at this time. So I
Wow.
made reservations at this spot on Central Park South, Sarah Beth's on Central Park South. I think it was like at 8 a.m. And he showed up and had a coffee with me and gave me a whole rundown. I barely even spoke, but the advice he was giving me, the wisdom, the stories, the genuine care that he was providing me, I will never forget that. Just wow. And this is before he started representing Mahomes and all the, and he has an amazing story. Like he was big and then he hit rock bottom. He filed
Hit
for
rock bottom, man.
alcoholic. He lost his license and then just reinvented himself. And I'm so
Absolutely.
proud of him. And he deserves all the success in the world. And I hope he continues to be successful because he's just such a great guy.
Oh
And
man, he's one of the best.
yes, I never really told anyone that story about Lee Steinberg, but
Hey,
it's out there now, and I hope he hears this because great guy, really.
oh man, when I talk to him, I'm definitely gonna let him know. I met him through my dad. My dad is a addiction medicine doctor. In
Yeah,
fact, my father's coming out here for a convention here at the convention center. I'm going to be meeting up with him. But I was to take you back to where I was going with your brother. I saw that he's going after gamers, like with the screen addiction, video games and things of that nature. And I have a friend in New York, Dr. Nicholas Kadaris. I don't know if you know about him, but he wrote a book specifically about the screen and games and things of that nature, the addiction factor in there. So I got Kadaris. I got to hook you guys up with him.
I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? The video, Sean is really into the whole video game industry, and we're starting to take on cases against the video game industry for video game addiction. And just like any other unsafe product, when the algorithms are unsafe and they are targeting young children to get them addicted, that just goes too far, and they should be held accountable for doing that. So those are the types of, that's what we're pursuing now, and we're very excited about it.
That's a huge undertaking. And hey, your middle name being David, taking on the Giants, that's I wouldn't expect anything less. Can you walk me back to where your practices? I know there's all across the board. What would you say your highest percentage of your law firm specifically concentrates on? Is it PI, or is it employment discrimination, or are they equally yoked, or how does that work?
I would say it's probably 70% PI, and then we have a 30% where it's employment discrimination. We do a lot of age discrimination, sex harassment cases, disability discrimination, race discrimination. After COVID, we saw a lot of pregnancy discrimination cases. I would say it's about 30% more doing PI. But also, we do a lot of sex assault cases. You know, in New York, there are new laws where there are look back windows. Right now, there's a new New York City look back window that lets you go back in time and hold institutions accountable for enabling sex assault against their abusers. So we're doing a lot of that type of work as well. But in New York, there's just so much that happens that, you know, why not get into these industries where, first of all, we know the law very well. We know how to litigate. You know, litigating an injury case and litigating a discrimination case, they're not the same, but they're similar. You know, you still have to prove liability. you still need to substantiate damages. So it's just a matter of what the law is and understanding, how to litigate these cases, but they're very similar. You still have to prove liability, you still have to substantiate damages. So we feel very comfortable doing both, and we're here to help as many people as we can.
That's beautiful, man. That's wonderful. You said something that I was gonna get to. Let me collect my thoughts. My head is still ringing, man. By the way, I'm sitting here.
Sure.
I didn't want to miss this cast for nothing. If you were to go back to your younger self, or if a young lawyer came in today, and for what you know today, what you've been doing, what advice would you give your younger self and/or that young lawyer walking into the business?
I would say to have more grace in that, embrace the mistakes that you make. Be a little bit more patient with yourself. And this is a long game. You got to play the long game. I think early on when I started out, I felt that because I'm still developing my reputation, I needed to be perfect for my clients, for myself, for my staff. I had to be perfect in all realms. And mistakes are going to be made, and embrace that and have a lot of grace and have a lot of forgiveness for yourself. And, I think that was the biggest shift in just understanding that mistakes are going to be made. We know that. My staff's going to make mistakes, but doing the best that we possibly can and being as diligent as we possibly can. And, judges are going to make mistakes, and we're going to have to appeal those decisions. So understanding that, shifting from being perfect to being a human being was the biggest shift that I made, because I'm more comfortable with myself now. I'm not as hard on myself as I was, but you better believe I want to win just as much, if not even more now. And I also think, you can't have a scarcity mentality. You
Right.
can't be so attached to everything and everyone. I know, I'll tell you this, it sounds crazy, but if I were to lose my firm, God forbid, and everything, I now have, I know so much more now than I did 10 years ago. And I don't have the wisdom, didn't have the wisdom that I have now 10 years ago. So I know that I have the confidence now that if, God forbid, I were to lose everything, I could build it back up, maybe
Wow.
even better and stronger. So that's why I say embrace the mistakes, because that's your education and that's
Right.
the wisdom. Nobody knows, I'm still learning a tremendous amount as I go on, and the world's changing, and you're going to have to adjust. You can't do the same things. I can't run this firm the way I did in 2016. Okay.
Right.
Because there are things that we rely on now that didn't even exist in 2016. I'm talking about AI and all that. So just have some grace with yourself. And I think the best piece of advice I've ever gotten in life, ever, is that, don't ever feel sorry for yourself. That's the worst thing that you can do. We all have problems. We've all been through adversity. But I think the kiss of death is when you start feeling sorry for yourself. In life, as a lawyer, as a plaintiff, you can't feel sorry for yourself. You have to fight. You have to believe that things will get better and work that things will get better. Don't focus on the problem, focus on the solution. How are we going to get out of this? What is the solution? And, you have to accept things and move on.
Well said, man. Said like a wise man. And I love that how you look at if you were to lose everything, you'd build yourself back up. So that's something else you've taken from that Jerry Maguire, that Lee Steinberg era. You know, that I can see it inside of you. And just a compliment, you would have made a great a great agent, by the way. Just your mannerism and stuff. I know a lot of agents on that side and stuff, and they all have that confidence. You know, you need those confidence walking into negotiations, being able to handle. You know, when you take on a player, not only are you taking them on, but you're taking on the family, the friends, everything around them. This is situations that you have to control. So you have that. You have that. Just let you know.
I appreciate that. Well, it's a little easier. As crazy as it sounds, it's a little easier dealing with uh, New Yorkers and people out here than uh, athletes. Uh, Especially when all that money is involved. But I'm glad I tried it. I'm glad I tried it, and maybe one day later on, we'll.
Tell me about that experience. What was it? What was it like?
Well, I've kind of. It was just a lot of travel and like, hey, you want me to sign with you? Like, I need X amount of money, and with what I do, that's that would be illegal, right? And
Right.
I just get I wouldn't if I were to pursue that. I feel like I'd have to be part of like a bigger agency, and I went into it thinking I could kind of do it on my own, but I'm doing this work on my own, and I'm very happy that it's a family business and that I don't need to work at someone else's firm. So I'm glad that I did it, but I also, if I'm being straight with you, and one thing, this actually goes back to Lee, because he actually brought this up to me. He does, and if you know this about him, he raises a lot of money and awareness for concussions and head injuries.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing with him. And one thing I think going into it that I didn't realize is, if you've ever watched the movie Concussion with Will Smith,
yes,
that's another great movie. But unfortunately, now it's out there. Now it's out there that if you play these sports, you are at risk for these types of injuries. I think the whole issue was way back when the NFL allegedly was covering the risks of playing football and head injuries and all that. So now that people know and there's awareness, you assume that risk when you are playing football. But it's still a risk that's out there. It's very real. And you see how these injuries are impacting players. I didn't feel so great about being part of that. So that's why it didn't really appeal to me as I was in this industry. I just felt like not Lee, but others were kind of just sidestepping that part of it. And because they were making people, obviously they profit off of this. So it wasn't for me. And that's why I'm glad I tried it, because I would always have that regret.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that I did. But I'm also glad I'm happy with what I'm doing now. But now I represent, in litigation, I represent former college athletes against schools and university. We're handling a hazing case now against Seton Hall baseball that's in the early stages. But I think now with NIL, you have athletes who are empowered to speak up, and that's why hazing doesn't really fly anymore. Maybe it did when we were in school, but it doesn't really fly anymore. And athletes now are empowered to speak up. So that's what I'm doing now when it comes to like sports in that field.
And that makes you an expert in that field, man. And having the mentorships, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a mentorship of Lee Steinberg being in your ear, and you were just a sponge taking it all in. Because I've sat there with Lee. I have another podcast that was called Moments Before Greatness, and Lee was my first guest, and I was able to talk to him. I had a mutual friend that I grew up with that ran his agency when he was up and coming, David Meltzer. I don't know if you heard of that name, but
the name The name sounds familiar for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
David went to
Wait,
Occidental.
I wish I could share my screen with you. I have a LinkedIn video that I need to watch. It's about an hour by David Meltzer called The Hidden Cost of Worry. And
Man,
I'm
yes.
looking at his profile right now. You're right.
Isn't that crazy? The synchronicity that's happening right now. The
Former
synchronicity.
former CEO of Lee Steinberg Sports. You're right. I didn't know that he was the
Bro,
CEO.
I went to school with David. That's my high school friend.
He seems like a great guy.
He
And,
is. I was the reason he met Lee, by the way.
Wow. I believe that. So The Hidden Cost of Worry, David Meltzer. That's what I got to watch that's what I have on my browser right now. I'm looking at
man. That's this. Hey, I credit our producer Will Brooks for this introduction right now, because this is bigger than the podcast. I mean, what you're
you
doing.
were right. We have a lot in common. I would agree with that. For sure.
Absolutely, man. Okay, so tell me something. You're building this firm. You've been in going to be 10 years. How many cases are you bringing in per month right now?
Well, right now, yeah, we have a funnel that's going on now. I would say we're signing up about 10 to 15 cases per month, which is pretty healthy for us. We're extremely selective with the cases that we're taking on. I'm seeing an uptick in nursing home abuse cases, nursing home falls in New York, but I would say about 10 to 15 cases per month. And it's a lot of different buckets. We have a funnel, we're doing digital marketing, we're doing a lot on social media. We have a lot of referrals from other lawyers. We also get referrals from former clients, present clients. So you never know where your next case is going to come from. I've always been in New York my whole life. I've never lived anywhere else. I don't know how it is living anywhere else. During COVID, I was in Miami a lot. Spent a lot of time there. I spend a lot of time there, but I've never officially lived anywhere else but New York. So that's what it is. I think when you've been somewhere long enough, you just know a lot of people and they know you, and you're just top of mind, thankfully, with a lot of people when it comes to injury cases, abuse cases, discrimination cases. A lot of lawyers don't do the hybrid of what we do here, but I love what I do. And I hope that I can do that,
man. It shows.
for the rest of my life. I really do believe in it, and I love it.
That's beautiful, man. So with that said, man, Loudr Lawyer, I like to ask, what does Loudr Lawyer, when you hear the name Loudr Lawyer, what does that mean to you?
It means a lawyer that has mercy, compassion, and empathy for their clients. You have to have a heartfelt emotional response to the suffering of others. And you have to have support for the less fortunate. So if you're being loud and it's not for a purpose that's beyond yourself, then you're just being loud. Dogs bark. Dogs are loud, but you could be all bark and no bite. And to me, if you're going to be a Loudr lawyer, you have to have mercy and compassion and empathy for your clients. And you have to understand that, doctors provide health, you provide justice, and you have to have a heartfelt response to the suffering of others. That's how I perceive being a Loudr lawyer.
That was well said. Loudr with a purpose.
Yeah.
Man, that's beautiful. Hey, Mark, thank you, man. It was an honor to have you on the podcast here at Loudr. You are A class, man.
No, Raje, I've done a lot of these podcasts. I've been a guest. I have my own podcast, the Millennial Lawyer Podcast, and I've been a guest on many podcasts, but this was so enjoyable, and you're doing such a great job with this network, and it was an absolute honor being here, and I hope we can chat again soon. This was great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Oh, also, Mark, forgot. Leave a way people can get a hold of you.
So on Instagram, I'm the Millennial Lawyer, and I'm the host of the Millennial Lawyer Podcast that's everywhere: Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. And our website is www.shirianpc.com. And I'm also on TikTok, the Millennial Lawyer on TikTok as well. So that's where you can reach me.
All right. Well, thank you so much, man, for being a guest here on Loudr Lawyer Network.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for being a part of the Loudr Lawyer Network. If you're enjoying the conversation, let us know. Give us a like and subscribe to never miss a thing. We'll see you next time right here on the Loudr Lawyer Network.